Hopefully this window up here is not going to like totally throw off the white balance or some other photography term I don't really understand. Hopefully it'll all be fine. Welcome to my office space, which is actually a walk-in closet that I've converted to an office because my costumes are way too big to fit in here, but it does make a nice little cubicle for me to work at and read at and do videos at. Anyway, good morning, YouTube. This morning I was researching the Byronic hero, the sort of brooding, sexy, sometimes anti-hero, doesn't play by other people's rules kind of character. And I thought, hey, if I wanted to get a good grasp on what this character actually is and means, maybe I should just go to the source. So today I'm going to start reading Childe Harold's Pilgrimage by Lord Byron. I should put warnings on this. I don't know what's going to be in here. Except for the first page, which I read, which is already going to have some problematic material, because, yeah, no, I love unpacking that. I'm also hoping this is going to be shorter than a full-length novel, but, fuck. Okay, we have 155 pages of Spencerian stanzas to get through. Yay! Alright. Oh, I should mention the child in the character's name is a title, is a classic title for a squire who is soon to become a knight. Literary internet does tell me that a major theme of this story is building off of the older romantic and chivalric tradition of storytelling, but, well, making it dark and gritty. Or at least skewering some of the ideas of the Romantic period, or building on the theme that that period is now dead and gone. Childe Harold's Pilgrimage by Lord Byron. To Ianthe. Not in those climes where I have late been straying, though beauty long hath there been matchless deemed, not in those visions to the heart displaying forms which it sighs but to have only dreamed. Hath aught like thee in truth or fancy seemed? Nor having seen thee shall I vainly seek to paint those charms which varied as they beamed. To such as see thee not my words were weak. To those who gaze on thee what language could they speak? Ah, mayst thou ever be what now thou art, nor unbeseem the promise of thy spring. As fair in form, as warm yet pure in heart, love's image upon earth without his wing. And guileless beyond hope's imagining, and surely she who now so fondly rears thy youth in thee, thus hourly brightening, beholds the rainbow of her future years, before whose heavenly hues all sorrow disappears. Young Peri of the West, 'tis well for me, my years already double number thine. My years already doubly number thine. My loveless eyes unmoved may gaze on thee, and safely view thy ripening beauties shine. Happy I ne'er shall see them in decline. He's talking about boobs, if you're wondering. He's talking about boobs. Happier that, while all younger hearts shall bleed, mine shall escape the doom thine eyes assign. To those whose admiration shall succeed, but mixed with pangs to love's even loveliest hours decreed. O let that eye, which wild as the gazelle's, now brightly bold or beautifully shy, wins as it wanders, dazzles where it dwells, glances o'er this page, nor to my verse deny that smile for which my breast might vainly sigh. Could I to thee be ever more than friend, this much dear maid accord, nor question why. To one so young my strain I would commend, but bid me with my wreath one matchless lily blend. Such is thy name with this my verse entwined, as long as kinder eyes a look shall cast on Harold's page. Ianthe's here enshrined shall thus be first beheld, forgotten last. My days once numbered, shall this homage past attract thy fairy fingers near the lyre of him who hailed thee, loveliest as thou wast, such as the most my memory may desire, though more than hope can claim could friendship less require. All right, to sum that up, he's basically hiding in the bushes, checking out some girl who is indecently younger than him. I mean, I'm assuming he's like 30 and checking out someone who's 50. I mean, it doesn't feel like something someone in their 70s would be writing and would make that half his age thing appropriate, or 60s even. Then basically he's going to do the honorable thing of friend-zoning himself and just write poetry about her ripe boobs. Her ripe beauties. Then wax poetic about the pains of love that he's not actually going to know. And yeah, he's just really extra. Just really fucking extra. But in a dark and brooding way. It's all about love. All right. Canto the First. O thou, in Hellas deemed of heavenly birth, muse formed or fabled at the minstrel's will, since shamed full oft by later lyres on earth, mine dares not call thee from thy sacred hill. Yet there I've wandered by the vaunted rill, yet sighed o'er Delphi's long deserted shrine, where save that feeble fountain all is still, nor mote my shell awake the weary nine, to grace so plain a tale this lowly lay of mine. All right, I actually really like that line. He's borrowing from the tradition of invoking the muses to bless his work, but is more or less saying, like, I'm not worthy, which I think will hit onto some of its less romantic themes that he hits here, but also kind of like the past. He hits on like the great past that people are trying to bring back is dead, and we are in a darker and grittier world now. Whilome in Albion's isle there dwelt a youth, who nay in virtue's ways did take delight, but spent his days in riot most uncouth, and vexed with mirth the drowsy ear of night. Ah me, in sooth he was a shameless wight, sore given to revel in ungodly glee. Few earthly things found favour in his sight, save concubines and carnal company, and flaunting with sailors of high and low degree. Childe Harold was his height, but whence his name and lineage long it suits me not to say. Suffice it that perchance they were of fame, and had been glorious in another day. But one sad losel soils a name for aye, however mighty in the olden time, nor all that heralds rake from confined clay, nor florid prose, nor honeyed lines of rhyme, can blazon evil deeds or consecrate a crime. All right, so there's a kid of noble birth, but he's basically been spending his life on hookers and blow, and apparently this is a bad thing. Childe Harold basked him in noontide sun, disporting there like any other fly, nor deemed before his little day was done one blast might chill him into misery. But long ere scarce a third of his passed by, worse than adversity the child befell. He felt the fullness of satiety, then loathed he in his native land to dwell, which seemed to him more lone than Eremide's sad cell. For he through sin's long labyrinth had run, nor made atonement when he did amiss, had sighed too many though he loved but one, and that loved one, alas, could ne'er be his. A happy she to scape from him whose kiss had been polluted unto aught so chaste, who soon had left her charms for vulgar bliss, and spoiled her goodly lands to gild his waist, nor calm domestic peace had ever deigned to taste. Okay, always the favorite of confusing the words waste and waste. Yeah, so Childe Harold, he loves someone, but she's like a good person, and he's like can't get with that, so he goes and sleeps with whores. Which, I mean, coping mechanisms, please. We all been there. And now Childe Harold was sore sick at heart, and from his fellow bacchanals would flee. 'Tis said at times the sullen tear would start, but pride congealed the drop within his eye. Apart he stalked in joyless reverie, and from his native land resolved to go and visit scorching climes beyond the sea. With pleasure drugged he almost longed for woe, and even when change of scene would seek the shades below. The child departed from his father's hall. It was a vast and venerable pile, so old it seemed only not to fall, yet strength was pillared in every massy aisle. Monastic dome condemned to uses vile, where superstition once had made her den, now Paphian girls were known to sing and smile, and monks might deem their time has come again, if ancient tales say true, nor wrong these holy men. What is Paphian? All right, apparently Paphian is either a native inhabitant of Paphos or a prostitute. This whole section is rather judgy about sex workers and feels very sex negative as a whole, and I just want to say that that is wrong, kids. There is nothing wrong with sex. There is nothing wrong with being a professional at sex. Don't take ancient books as a moral example, because the past sucked. Yet oftentimes in his maddest mirthful mood, strange pangs would flash along Childe Harold's brow, as if the memory of some deadly feud or disappointed passion lurked below. But this none knew, nor haply cared to know. For his was not that open, artless soul that feels relief by bidding sorrow flow, nor sought he friend, counsel, or condole, whate'er this grief mote be, which he could not control. 'Cause he's really dark and broodingly soulful. And none did love him, though to hall and bower he gathered revellers from far and near. He knew them flatterers of the festal hour, and heartless parasites of present cheer. Yet, yea, none did love him, not his layman's dear, but pomp and power alone are women's care, and where these are light, Eros finds a fear. Maidens like moths are ever caught by glare, and Mammon wins his way where seraphs might despair. The good old Christian era where everything was just so overwrought about its sin. It's just fucking horrors, come on, it's not that bad. Childe Harold had a mother not forgot, though parting from that mother he did shun, a sister whom he loved but saw her not, before his weary pilgrimage begun. If friends he had, he bade adieu to none, yet deem not thence his breast a breast of steel. Yea, who have known what 'tis to dote upon a few dear objects will in sadness feel, such partings break the heart they fondly hope to heal. His house, his home, his heritage, his lands, the laughing dames in whom he did delight, whose large blue eyes, fair locks, and snowy hands might shake the saintship of an anchorite, and long had fed his youthful appetite. His goblets brimmed with every costly wine, and all that mote to luxury invite, without a sigh he left to cross the brine, and traverse Paynim shores, and pass earth's central line. The sails were filled, and fair the light winds blew, as glad to waft him from his native home, and fast the white rocks faded from his view, and soon were lost in circumambient foam. And then it may be of his wish to roam repented he, but in his bosom slept the silent thought, nor from his lips did come one word of wail, whilst others sate and wept, and to the reckless gales unmanly moaning kept. So to catch up, I got tired of his life of debauchery, and or is fleeing the repercussions of his life of debauchery. I wasn't clear on that, but he's going to go travel the world, and in a dark and brooding way, as a lone wanderer. He did not even say goodbye to his friends, for friends he had none. But when the sun was sinking in the sea, he seized his harp, which he at times could string and strike, albeit with untaught melody. Of course he brought a fucking harp. Of course he... And strike, albeit with untaught melody, when deemed he no strange ear was listening, and now his fingers o'er it he did fling, and tuned his farewell to the dim twilight, while flew the vessel in our snowy wing, and fleeing shores receded from his sight. Thus to the elements he poured his last good night. Okay, from here on out, I am imagining this, like, in my head, this is Lego Batman. And he's now just, like, on his guitar, sit there going, like, darkness, no parents. Childe Harold is Lego Batman. I don't make the rules. It's just true. Thus to the elements he poured his last good night. Adieu, adieu, my native shore fades o'er the waters blue. The night winds sigh, the breakers roar, and shrieks the wild sea mew. Yon sun that sets upon the sea, we follow in this flight. Farewell awhile to him and thee, my native land, good night. A few short hours, and he will rise to give the morrow birth, and I shall hail the main and skies, but not my mother earth. Deserted is my own good hall, its hearth is desolate, wild weeds are gathered in the wall, my dog howls at the gate. Come hither, hither, my little page, who dost thou weep and wail? Or dost thou dread the billow's rage, or trembles at the gale? But dash the teardrop from thine eye, our ship is swift and strong, our fleetest falcon scarce can fly more merrily along. Let winds be shrill, let waves roll high, I fear not wave nor wind. Yet marvel not, Sir Childe, that I am sorrowful in mind. For I have from my father gone, a mother whom I love. I have no friends save these alone, but thee and one above. My father blessed me fervently, he yet did not much complain. But sorely will my mother sigh till I come back again. Enough, enough, my little lad, such tears become thine eye. If thy guileless bosom had, mine own would not be dry. Come hither, hither, my staunch yeoman, why dost thou look so pale? Or dost thou dread a French foeman, or shiver at the gale? Deem'st thou I tremble for my life, Sir Childe? I am not so weak, but think on an absent wife will blanch a faithful cheek. My spouse and boys dwell near thy hall, along the bordering lake, and when they on their father call, what answer shall we make? Enough, enough, my human good, my grief let none gainsay, but I, who am of lighter mood, will laugh to flee away. For who would trust the seeming sighs of wife or paramour? Fresh fears will dry, and bright blue eyes will late saw streaming o'er. For pleasures past I do not grieve, nor perils gather near. My greatest grief is that I leave, know nothing that claims a tear. Now I'm in the world alone, upon the wide, wide sea, but why should I for others groan, when none shall sigh for me? Perchance my dog will whine in vain, till fed by stranger hands, but long ere I come back again, he'd tear me where he stands. With thee, my bark, I'll swiftly go, athwart the foaming brine, nor care what land thou bear'st me to, so not again to mine. Welcome, welcome, ye dark blue waves, and when ye fail my sight, welcome, ye deserts and ye caves, my native land, good night. Okay, I see why he's only doing these poems alone and not in front of others. This is not a Spencerian verse. I don't, off the top of my head, know what verse this is. But I know I have seen this type of verse done well. I think Tolkien did it in the Lay of Galadriel, but or at least it's very similar. Has that feel to it. But that was done really well because it was about like more important shit. And this comes off as like really whiny and self-indulgent. Right, he's just kind of singing about himself, and now like he's facing consequences of his poor life choices. So it kind of comes off as emo. It's all I'm saying. Oh, I should also point out that this story is considered by experts to be entirely autobiographical by Lord Byron. Like the original name for it was Childe Byron, which is totally a different name. It's like an ancient archaic spelling of Byron. I also know he also did not want to publish large parts of this because it was so autobiographical, but his friends convinced him to, which is either really good friends or really bad friends, depending on how you view it. This is like his most famous work that made him an instant celebrity. So I guess there's that. But I love how he talks about like how the character that is basically just the author has no friends, when like in real life he constantly had friends basically fixing all of his shit and problems, but in his own conception of himself he has no friends because he's alone and brooding. Yeah. Okay, to be fair, I'm gonna like talk shit about Lord Byron a lot through this entire video. And to put in context and be fair, a lot of people are pretty certain, like, he's one of the few historical figures who people are very certain had a mental illness, specifically bipolar disorder. A lot of Lord Byron's actions make a lot more sense in the light of manic episodes, and so I do want to, I guess, point out that there is, he's not just a person who screws up everything. I mean, there aren't really people in life who screw up everything for no reason. Lord Byron's actions through life are not without a cause or reason. I don't want to just dismiss him as like, oh, he was emo, and there is a reason. But on the other hand, lots of people have bipolar disorder and don't get up to like half the stupid shit he did. So mental illness is not an excuse for your actions. Even if mental illness is a contributing factor to your actions and personality, they are not the cause of them. We still have free will and make our own choices. All right, that was a long digression. Back to the story. On the vessel flies, the land is gone, and winds are rude in Biscay's sleepless bay. 4 days are sped, but with the fifth anon, new shores descried make every bosom gay, and Cintra's mountain greets them on their way. And Tagus, dashing onward to the deep, his fabled golden tribute bent to pay, and soon on board the Lucian pilots leap, and steer twixt fertile shores where yet few rustics reap. All right, this is all describing geography that I guess would be obvious to someone who grew up in Europe, but I believe he's going to Portugal. O Christ, it is a goodly sight to see what heaven hath done for this delicious land. What fruits of fragrance blush on every tree, what goodly prospects o'er the hills expand. But man would mar them with impious hand, and when the Almighty lifts his fiercest scourge 'gainst those whose most transgress his high command, with treble vengeance will his hot shafts urge, gulls, locusts, host, and earth from fellest foemen purge. What beauties doth Lisbo first unfold, her image floating on that noble tide, which poets vainly pave with sands of gold, but now whereupon 1,000 keels did ride. Of mighty strength, since Albion was allied, and to the Lucians did her aid afford, a nation swollen with ignorance and pride, who lick yet loathe the hand that waves the sword, to save them from the wrath of Gaul's unsparing lord. Who lick yet loathe the hand that waves the sword. I gotta remember that line. But whoso entereth within this town, that sheening far celestial seems to be, disconsolate will wander up and down, mid many things unsightly to strange eye, for hut and palace show like filthily. The dingy denizens are reared in dirt, no personage of high or mean degree doth care for cleanness of surtout or shirt, though shent from with Egypt's plague, unkempt, unwashed, unhurt. Poor paltry slaves, yet born midst noblest scenes, why nature wastes thy wonders on such men? Lo Cintra's glorious Eden intervenes in variegated mazes of mountain glen. Ah me, what hand can pencil guide or pen to follow half on which the eye dilates, through views more dazzling unto mortal ken than those whereof such things the bard relates, who to the awestruck world unlocked Elysium's gates. The horrid crags by toppling convent crowned, the cork trees hoar that cloth the shaggy steep, the mountain moss by scorching skies embrowned the sunken glen whose sunless shrubs must weep, the tender azure of the unruffled deep, the orange tints that gild the greenest bough, the torrents that from cliff to valley leap, the vine on high, the willow branch below, mixed in one mighty scene with varied beauty glow. Then slowly climb the many winding way, and frequently turn to linger as you go. From loftier rocks new loveliness survey, and rest ye at Our Lady's house of woe, where frugal monks their little relics show, and sundry legends to the stranger tell. Here impious men have punished been, and low deep in yon cave Honorius long did dwell, and hope to merit heaven by making earth a hell. And here and there, as up the crags you spring, mark many crude carved crosses near the path, yet deem not these devotions offering there are memorials frail of murderous wrath. For whosoe'er the shrieking victim hath poured forth his blood beneath the assassin's knife, some hand erects a cross of mouldering lath, and grove and glen with thousands such are rife, throughout this purple land where law secures not life. I guess to summarize this section, he's describing the area of what I believe he's in Portugal, Spanish area. He's describing what he sees, which is beautiful nature, historical things that us non-Europeans had a poor education and don't know anything about, and all the people are really poor and dirty, and he's judgmental and kind of an elitist asshole. But I'm not sure that last part was apparent to the people of the time. I think everyone reading this might have been an elitist asshole and agreed with him, so I don't know. On sloping mounds or in the vale beneath are domes where whilom kings did make repair, but now the wild flowers round them only breath, yet ruined splendor still is lingering there, and yonder towers the prince's palace fair. There thou too, Vathek, England's wealthiest son, once formed thy paradise, is not aware, when wanton wealth here mightiest deeds hath done, meek peace voluptuous lures was ever wont to shun. Here didst thou dwell, here schemes of pleasure plan, beneath yon mountain's ever beauteous brow, but now, as if the thing unblessed by man, thy fair dwelling is as lone as thou. Here giant weeds a passage scarce allow, to hall's deserted portals gaping wide, fresh lessons to the thinking bosom. How vain are the pleasances on earth supplied, swept into wrecks anon by time's ungentle tide. Behold the hall where chiefs were late convened, O dome displeasing unto British eye, with diadem high, fool's cap low. A fiend, a little fiend that scoffs incessantly, there sits in parchment robe arrayed, and by his side is hung a seal and sable scroll, where blazoned glare names known to chivalry, and sundry signatures adorn the roll, whereat the urchin points and laughs with all his soul. Convention is the dwarvish demon styled that foiled the knights in Murialva's dome. Of brains, if brains they had, he them beguiled, and turned a nation's shallow joy to gloom. Here folly dashed to earth the victor's plume, and policy regained what arms had lost. For chiefs like ours in vain may laurels bloom. Woe to the conquering, not the conquered host, since baffled triumph droops in Lusitania's coast. And ever since that martial synod met, Britannia sickens Sintra at thy name, and folks in office at the mention fret, and fain would blush, if blush they could, for shame. How will posterity the deed proclaim? Will not our own and fellow nations sneer, to view these champions cheated of their fame, by foes in fight or throw, yet victors here, where scorn her finger points through many a coming year? So deem the child, as o'er the mountains he did take his way to solitary guise. Sweet was the scene, yet soon he thought to flee, more restless than the shallow in the skies. Though here awhile he learned to moralize, for meditation fixed at times on him, and conscious reason whispered to despise his early youth misspent in maddest whim. But as he gazed on truth, his aching eyes grew dim. To horse he quits, forever quits a scene of peace, though soothing to his soul. Again he rouses from his moping fits, but seeks not now the harlot in the bowl. Onward he flies, nor fixed is yet the goal, where he shall rest him on his pilgrimage, and o'er him many changing scenes must roll, ere toil this thirst for travel can assuage, and he shall calm his breast or learn experience sage. Yet Maphra shall one moment claim delay, where dwelt of yore the Lusians' luckless queen, and church and court did mingle their array, and mass and revel were alternate seen, lordlings and freres ill-sorted fry, I ween. But here the Babylonian whore had built a dome, where flaunts she in such glorious sheen, that men forget the blood which she hath spilt, and bow the knee to pomp that loves to garnish guilt. O'er vales that teem with fruits romantic hills, that such hills upheld a freeborn race, whereon to gaze the eye with joyous fills, child herald wends through many a pleasant place. Though sluggards deem it but a foolish chase, and marvel men should quit their easy chair, the toilsome way and long league to trace, oh, there is sweetness in the mountain air, and life the bloated ease can never hope to share. More bleak to view the hills at length recede, and less luxuriant smoother vales extend. Immense horizon-bounded plains succeed, far as the eye discerns without end. Spain's realms appear, wherein her shepherds tend flocks whose rich fleece right well the trader knows. Now must the pastor's arm his lambs defend, for Spain is compassed by unyielding foes, and all must shield their all, or share subjection's woes. Where Lusitania and her sisters met, deem ye what bounds the rival realms divide, or ne'er the jealous queens of nations greet, doth Teo interpose his mighty tide, or dark sierras rise in craggy pride, or fence of art like China's vasty wall, Ne barrier wall, no river deep and wide, no horrid crags, nor mountains dark and tall, rise like the rocks that part Hispania's land from Gaul. See, Spain, I was right. But these between a silver streamlet glides, and scarce a name distinguisheth the brook. Though rival kingdoms press its verdant sides, here leans the idle shepherd on his crook, and vacant on the rippling waves doth look, that peaceful still twixt bitterest foemen flow. For proud each peasant as the noblest duke, well doth the Spanish hind the difference know. Twixt him and Lucian's slave, the lowest of the low, but ere the mingling bounds have far been passed, dark Guadiana rolls his power along in sullen billows murmuring and vast. So noted ancient roundelays among, whilom upon his banks did legions throng, of Moor and knight in mailed splendor dressed. Here ceased the swift their race, here sunk and strong the Paynim turban and Christian crest, mixed on the bleeding stream by floating hosts oppressed. I feel like all of these would be more meaningful to me if I had had any lessons in history or geography. But I'm American, so I'm just going to try to appreciate that the words are pretty. O lovely Spain, renowned romantic land, where is that standard which Pelagio bore, with Cava's traitor sire first called the band that dyed the mountain streams with Gothic gore? Where are those bloody banners which of yore waved o'er thy sons, victorious to the gate, and drove at last the spoilers to their shore? Red gleamed the cross and waned the crescent pale, while Afric's echoes thrilled with Moorish matrons' wail. Teems not each ditty with the glorious tale? Ah, such, alas, the hero's amplest fate! When granite moulders and when records fail, a peasant's plaint prolongs his dubious date. Pride, bend thine eyes from heaven to thine estate. See how thy mighty shrink into a song. Can volume, pillar, pile preserve thee great? Or must thou trust tradition's simple tongue, when flattery sleeps with thee and history does thee wrong? Awake, ye sons of Spain, awake, advance, lo chivalry, your ancient goddess cries, but wields not, as of old, her thirsty lance, nor shakes her crimson plumage in the skies. Now on the smoke of blazing bolts she flies, and speaks in thunder through yon engine's roar, and every peal she calls, awake, arise. Say, is her voice more feeble than of yore, when her war song was heard in Andalusian shore? So I think he's talking about the Spanish-French War, and basically the days of glorious and honorable, quotation mark, chivalrous combat with swords and lances is no more, and people just use guns. Make of the virtue of efficient killing what you will, but Byron seems to be against it and wants killing people in a more hands-on and noble way. Hark you not those hoofs of dreadful note? Sounds not the clang of conflict on the heath? Saw ye not whom the reeking saber smote, nor saved your brethren ere they sank beneath? Tyrants and tyrants' slaves, the fires of death, the bale fires flash on high from rock to rock. Each volley tells that thousands cease to breathe. Death rides upon the sulphury Siroc. Red battle stamps his foot, and nations feel the shock.
Lo, where the giant on the mountain stands, his blood-red tresses deepening in the sun, with death-shot glowing in his fiery hands, an eye that scorcheth all it glares upon. Restless it rolls, now fixed and now anon, flashing afar, and at his iron feet destruction cowers to mark what deeds are done. For on this morn 3 potent nations meet, to shed before his shrine the blood he deems most sweet.
By heaven, it is a splendid sight to see, for one who hath no friend, no brother there. The rival scarfs of mixed embroidery, their various arms that glitter in the air, whose gallant war-hounds rouse them from their lair, and gnash their fangs, loud yelling for the prey. All join the chase, but few the triumph share. The grave shall bear the chiefest prize away, and havoc scarce for joy can cumber their array. 3 hosts combine to offer sacrifice, 3 tongues prefer strange orisons on high, 3 gaudy standards flout the pale blue skies. The shouts are France, Spain, Albion, victory. The foe, the victim, and the fond ally, that fights for all but ever fights in vain. are met as if at home they could not die, to feed the crow at Talavera's plain and fertilize the field that each pretends to gain. There shall they rot, ambition's honored fools, yet honor decks the turf that wraps their clay, vain sophistry in those beheld the tools, the broken tools that tyrants cast away. By myriads when they dare to pave their way, with human hearts to what? A dream alone can despots compass aught that hails their sway, or call with truth one span of earth their own, save that wherein at last they crumble bone by bone. O Albura, glorious field of grief, as o'er thy plains the pilgrim pricked his steed, who could foresee thee in a space so brief, a scene where mingling foes should boast and bleed. Peace to the perished, may the warriors meed, and tears of triumph their reward prolong, till others fall where other chieftains lead. Thy name shall circle round in gaping throng, and shrine in worthless lays the theme of transient song. Enough of battle's minions. Let them play their game of lives and barter breath for fame, fame that will scarce reanimate their clay, though thousands fall to deck some single name. In sooth, 'twere sad to thwart their noble aim, who strike blessed hirelings for their country's good, and die that living might have proved their shame, perish perchance in some domestic feud, or in a narrower sphere wild rapine's path pursued. Full swiftly Harold wends his lonely way, where proud Sevilla triumphs unsubdued. Yet is she free, the spoilers wished for prey, soon shall conquest's fiery foot intrude, blackening her lovely domes with traces rude. Inevitable hour, giant's fate to strive, where desolation plants her famished brood, is vain or Ilian tear may yet survive, and virtue vanquish all, the murder cease to thrive. But all unconscious of the coming doom, the feast, the song, the revel here abounds. Strange modes of merriment the hours consume, nor bleed these patriots with their country's wounds, nor hear war's clarion, but love's rebeck sounds. Here folly still votaries enthralls. A young-eyed lewdness walks her midnight rounds, girt with the silent crimes of capitals still, to the last kind vice clings to the tottering walls. It's interesting to me that Byron's language in describing war in many ways parallels and draws comparison to the previous language describing debauchery and the hookers and blow scene from the beginning. I mean, there's a lot to compare that, but given that Byron ultimately dies, spoiler alert, not this story actually, but spoiler alert for Lord Byron's life, but he ultimately dies because he runs off and fights in Greece's War of Independence against the Ottoman Empire, which I suppose is heroic, and if you're going to die, dying for like high ideals is freedom and liberty is pretty good one to die. But the fact that this person famous for living his life in debauchery then runs off to join somebody else's war and dies in it really says a lot about the I guess the revelry of war that he draws a comparison to here. I hope any of that just made sense, because I don't even half know what I just said. Back to the story. Not so the rustic with his trembling mate, he lurks nor casts his heavy eye afar, lest he should view his vineyard desolate, blasted below the dun hot breath of war. No more beneath the soft eaves consenting star, Fandango twirls his jocund castanet. Ah, monarchs, could ye taste the mirth ye mar, not in the toils of glory would ye fret. The hoarse dull drum would sleep, and man be happy yet. How carols now the lusty muleteer, of love, romance, devotion is his lay. As whilom he was wont the leagues to cheer, his quick bells wildly jingling on the way. No, as he speeds he chants Viva el Rey, and checks his song to execrate Gaudet, the royal widow Charles, and curse the day when first Spain's queen beheld the black-eyed boy. And on yon long level plain, at distance crowned with crags, Where on those Moorish turrets rest, wide scattered hoof marks dint the wounded ground, and scathed by fire the greensward's darkened vest tells that the foe was Andalusian's guest. Here was the camp, the watch flame, and the host. Here the brave peasant stormed the dragon's nest. Still does he mark it with triumphant boast, and point to yonder cliffs which oft were won and lost. And whomsoe'er along the path you meet bears in his cap the badge of crimson hue, which tells you whom to shun and whom to greet. Woe to the man that walks in public view without of loyalty this token true. Sharp is the knife and sudden is the stroke, sorely would the Gallic foeman rue, if subtle poniards wrapped beneath the cloak could blunt the sabre's edge or clear the cannon's smoke. At every turn Morena's dusky height sustains aloft the battery's iron load, and far as mortal eye can compass sight the mountain howitzer, the broken road, the bristling palisade, the fosse o'erflowed, the stationed bands and never vacant watch, the magazine on rocky durance stowed, the holstered steed beneath the shed of thatch, the ball-piled pyramid an ever-blazing match. Portend the deeds to come, but he whose nod has tumbled feebler despots from their sway, a moment pauseth ere he lifts the rod, a little moment deigneth to delay. Soon will his legions sweep through these the way. The West must own the scourger of the world, and Spain, how sad will be thy reckoning day, when soars gull vulture with his wings unfurled, and thou shalt view thy sons in crowds to Hades hurled. And must they fall, the young, the proud, the brave, to swell one bloated chief's unwholesome reign? No step between the submission and a grave, the rise of rapine and the fall of Spain. And doth the power that man adores ordain their doom, nor heed the suppliant's peal? And all these desperate valor acts in vain, and counsel sage and patriotic zeal, the veteran's skill, youth's fire, and manhood's heart of steel. Is it for this the Spanish maid aroused hangs on the willow her unstrung guitar, and all unsexed the endless hath espoused, sung the loud song and dared the deed of war, and now views the column's scattering bayonet jar, the falchion flash, and o'er the yet warm dead stalks with Minerva's step where Mars might quake to tread. Ye who shall marvel when you hear her tale, ye who shall marvel when you hear her tale, oh, had you known her in her softer hour, marked her black eye that mocks her coal-black veil, heard her light, lively tones in lady's bower, seen her long locks that foil the painter's power, her fairy form with more than female grace, scarce would you deem it Saragossa's tower, beheld her smile and danger Gorgon's face, thin the closed ranks, and lead in glory's fearful chase. Her lover sings, she sheds no ill-timed tear, her chief is slain, she fills her fatal post. Her fellows flee, she checks their base career, the woe retires, she heeds the sallying host. Who can appease her like a lover's ghost? Who can avenge so well a leader's fall? What maid retrieve when man's flushed hope is lost? Who hangs so fiercely on the flying Gaul, foiled by a woman's hand before a battering wall? Yet are Spain's maids no race of Amazons, but formed for all the witching arts of love, though thus in arms they emulate her sons, and in the horrid phalanx dare to move. 'Tis but the tender fierceness of the dove, pecking the hand that hovers o'er her mate, in softness as in firmness far above remoter females famed for sickening prate. Her mind is nobler sure, her charms perchance as great. The seal love's dimpling fingers hath impressed denote how soft that chin which bears his touch. Her lips whose kisses pout to leave their nest bid man be valiant ere he merit such. Her glance how wildly beautiful, how much hath Phoebus wooed in vain to spoil her cheek, which glows yet smoother from her amorous clutch, who round the north for paler dames would seek. How poor their forms appear, how languid, wan, and weak. Match me, ye climes whose poets love to laud, match me, ye harems of the land where now I strike my strain, far distant to applaud beauties that even a cynic must avow. Match me those houri whom ye scarce allow to taste the gale lest love should ride the wind. With Spain's dark glancing daughters deign to know, there your wise prophet's paradise we find, his black-eyed maids of heaven, angelically kind. O thou Parnassus, whom I now survey, not in the frenzy of a dreamer's eye, not in the fabled landscape of a lay, but soaring snow-clad through the native sky, in the wild pomp of mountain majesty, what marvel if I thus essay to sing, the humblest of thy pilgrims passing by would gladly woo thine echoes with his string. Though from thy heights no more one muse will wave her wing. Oft have I dreamed of thee, whose glorious name who knows not man's divinest lore, and now I view thee, 'tis alas with shame that I in feeblest accents must adore. When I recount thy worshippers of yore, I tremble and can only bend the knee, nor raise my voice, nor vainly dare to soar, but gaze beneath thy cloudy canopy. In silent joy to think at last I look on thee. Happier in this than man Midas bards have been, whose fate to distant homes confine their lot. Shall I unmoved behold the hallowed scene, with others rave of, though they know it not? Though here no more Apollo haunts his grot, and though the Muses' seat art now their grave, some gentle spirit still pervades the spot, sighs in the gale, keeps silent in the cave, and glides with glassy foot o'er yon melodious wave. Of thee hereafter, even amidst my strain, I turned aside to pay my homage there, forgot the land, the sons, the maids of Spain, her fate to every freeborn bosom dear, and hailed thee not perchance without a tear. Now to my theme, but from thy holy haunt, let me some remnant, some memorial bear, yield me one leaf of Daphne's deathless plant, nor let thy votary hope be deemed an idle vaunt. But ne'er did thou, fair mount, when Greece was young, see round thy giant base a brighter choir, nor e'er did Delphi, when her priestess sung the Pythian hymn with more than mortal fire, behold a train more fitting to inspire the song of love, the Andalusia's maids, nursed in the glowing lap of soft desire. Ah, that to these were given such peaceful shades as Greece can still bestow, though glory fly her glades. It's interesting that he keeps referencing ancient Greece because, he's not in Greece. And I think this is more indicative of how this period viewed ancient Greece and ancient Rome as just the history of Europe, and everywhere was based on Greece's history. It does not at all reference, say, Celtic mythology that actually was in Spain, because they didn't know anything about any of that. That was not a real thing. Fair is proud Seville, let her country boast, her strength, her wealth, her sight of ancient days. But Cadiz, rising on the distant coast, calls forth a sweeter though ignoble praise. Ah, vice, how soft are thy voluptuous ways! While boyish blood is mantling, who can scape the fascination of thy magic gaze? A cherub hydra round us dost thou gape, and mold to every taste thy dear delusive shape. When Paphos fell by time, accursed time, the queen who conquers all must yield to thee. The pleasures fled, but sought as warm a clime, and Venus constant in her native sea, to naught else constant hither deigned to flee, and fixed her shrine within these walls of white, though not to one dome circumscribeth she who her worship, but devoted to her rite, 1,000 altars rise for every blazing bright. From morn till night, from night till startled morn, peeps blushing on the revel's laughing crew. The song is heard, the rosy garland worn, devices quaint and frolics ever new. Tread on each other's kibes, along ado, her bids to sober joy with her sojourns. Naught interrupts the riot, though in lieu of true devotion monkish incense burns, and love and prayer unite, or rule the hour by turns. The Sabbath comes, a day of blessed rest. What hallowest it upon this Christian shore? Lo, it is sacred to a solemn feast. Hark, heard ye not the forest monarch's roar? Crashing the lance, he sniffs the spouting gore of man and steed, o'erthrown beneath his horns. The strongest arena shakes with shouts for more. Yells the mad crowd o'er entrails freshly torn, nor shrinks the female eye, nor even affects to mourn. The seventh day this, the jubilee of man, London right well thou knowest the day of prayer. Then thy spruce citizens, washed artisan, the smug apprentice gulp their weekly air. Thy coach of hackney whiskey, one-horse chair, and humblest gig through sundry suburbs whirl, To Hampstead, Brentford, Harrow, make a repair, till the tired jade the wheel forgets to hurl, provoking envious jibe from each pedestrian churl. Some o'er thy Thames row the ribboned fair, others along the safer turnpike fly. Some Richmond hill ascend, some scud to Ware, and many to the steep of Highgate high. Ask ye Boeotian shades the reason why? 'Tis to the worship of solemn horn, grasped in the holy hand of mystery, in whose dread name both men and maids are sworn, and consecrate the oath we drought and dance till morn. All have their fooleries, not alike are thine, fair Cadiz rising o'er the dark blue sea. Soon as the matin bell proclaimeth 9, thy saint adorers count the rosary. Much is the virgin teased to shrive them free, well do I ween the only virgin there. From crimes as numerous as her beadsmen be, then to the crowded circus forth they fare. Young, old, high, low, at once the same diversion share. The lists are oped, the spacious area cleared, thousands on thousands piled are seated round. Long ere the first loud trumpet's note is heard, no vacant space for laded wight is found. Here dons grandees, but chiefly dames abound, skilled to the ogle of a roguish eye, yet ever well inclined to heal the wound, none through their cold disdain are doomed to die. As moonstruck bards complain by love's sad archery, hushed is the din of tongues on gallant steeds, with milk-white crest, gold spur, and light-poised lance, for cavaliers prepared for venture steeds, and lowly bending to the lists advance. Rich are their scarfs, their chargers featly prance. If in the dangerous game they shine today, the crowd's loud shout, the lady's lovely glance, best prize of better acts, they bear away, and all the kings or chiefs ere gain their toils repay. The costly sheen and gaudy cloak arrayed, but all afoot, the light-limbed matador stands in the center, eager to invade the lord of lowing herds, but not before the ground with cautious tread is traversed o'er, lest aught unseen should lurk to thwart his speed. His arms a dart, he fights aloof, nor more can man achieve without friendly steed, alas, too oft condemned for him to bear and bleed. All right, my voice is going, so I'm going to cut it there for today. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what a lot of that last part was about. They went on for a while about Spanish women maybe fighting in wars. Maybe that's a historical note. Okay, I found on the internet apparently a lot of this section, which is called the Spanish Canto, is sort of poking fun at not just Spain, but at the Romantic movement, which he was a shift away from. Period was associated with Spain and with knights and chivalry, stuff like that. So a lot of this canto is sort of, I guess, deflating that idea. Yep, I could not find anything on the internet explaining that long description of Spanish women and why it had to be there and why they might be fighting in the war. I assume this is a history thing I don't understand. Until later, this is Annie Johnson signing off. All right, day 2. Let us see if we can finish the first canto. What app did I read this in? Thrice sounds the clarion, lo, the signal falls. The den expands, and expectation mute gapes round the silent circle's peopled walls. Bounds with one lashing spring the mighty brute, and wildly staring spurns with sounding foot the sand, nor blindly rushes on his foe. Here, there, he points his threatening front to suit his first attack, wide waving to and fro. His angry tail red rolls his eyes' dilated glow. Sudden he stops, his eye is fixed. Away, away, thou heedless boy, prepare the spear. Now is thy time to perish, or display the skill that yet may check his mad career. With well-timed croup the nimble coursers veer. On foams the bull, but not unscathed he goes. Streams from his flank the crimson torrent clear. He flies, he wheels, distracted with his throws. Dart follows dart, lance, loud bellowing speak his woes. Again he comes, nor dart nor lance avail, nor the wild plunging of the tortured horse. Though man and man's avenging arms assail, vain are his weapons, vainer is his force. One gallant steed is stretched a mangled corse, another hideous sight unseamed appears. His gory chest unveils life's panting source. Though death struck, still his feeble frame he rears, staggering, but stemming all, his lord unharmed he bears. Foiled, bleeding, breathless, furious to the last, full in the center stands the bull at bay. Mid wounds and clinging darts and lances brast, and foes disabled in brutal fray. And now the matadors around him play, shake the red cloak and poise the ready brand. Once more through all he bursts his thundering way. Vain rage the mantle quits, the conig hand wraps his fierce eye, 'tis past, he sinks upon the sand. Where his vast neck just mingles with the spine, sheathed in his form the deadly weapon lies. He stops, he starts, disdaining to decline, slowly he falls amidst triumphant cries, without a groan, without a struggle dies. The decorated car appears on high, the corse is piled, sweet sight for vulgar eyes. 4 steeds that spurn the rein as swift as shy hurl the dark bull along, scarce seen in dashing by. Such the ungentle sport that oft invites the Spanish maid and cheers the Spanish swain, nurturing in blood betimes his heart delights in vengeance, gloating on another's pain. What private feuds the troubled village stain, though now on phalanx host should meet the foe. Enough, alas, in humble homes remain to meditate against friends the secret blow. For some slight cause of wrath, whence life's warm stream must flow. But jealousy has fled, his bars, his bolts, his withered sentinel duenna sage, and all whereat the generous soul revolts, which the stern dotard deemed he could encage, have passed to darkness with the vanishing age, who late so free as Spanish girls were seen, ere war uprose in his volcanic rage, with braided tresses bound o'er the green, while on the gay dance shone night's lover-loving queen. O many a time and oft had Harold loved, or dreamed he loved, since rapture is a dream, but now his wayward bosom was unmoved, for not yet had he drunk of Leth's stream. And lately had he learned with truth to deem, love has no gift so grateful as his wings. How fair, how young, how soft soe'er he seems, full from the fount of joy's delicious springs, some bitter o'er the flowers its bubbling venom flings. Okay, so he's kind of going on more about how love sucks. Love is pain, brood. Yet to the beauteous form he was not blind, though now it moved him as it moves the wise. Not that philosophy on such a mind e'er deigned to bend her chastely waffle eyes, but passion raves itself to rest, or flies, has buried long his hope no more to rise. Pleasure's pallid victim, life abhorring gloom. Not that he saw his sadness could abate, yet once he struggled against the demon's sway, and as in beauty's bower he pensive sate, poured forth his unpremeditated lay to charms as fair as those that soothed his happier day. To Inez. Nay, smile not at my sullen brow, alas, I cannot smile again, yet heaven avert that ever thou shouldst weep and haply weep in vain. And dost thou ask what secret woe I bear, corroding joy and youth? And wilt thou vainly seek to know a pang even thou must fail to soothe? It is not love, it is not hate, nor low ambition's honours lost, that bids me loathe my present state and fly from all I prize the most. It is that wariness which springs from all I meet, or hear, or see, to me no pleasure beauty brings. Thine eyes have scarce a charm for me. It is that settled, ceaseless gloom that fabled Hebrew wanderer bore, that will not look beyond the tomb, but cannot hope for rest before. What exile from himself can flee to zones though more and more remote, still pursues where'er I be the blight of life the demon thought. Yet others wrapped in pleasure seem, and taste of all that I forsake. O may they still of transport dream, and ne'er at least like me awake. Through many a clime 'tis mine to go, with many a retrospection cursed, and all my solace is to know, whate'er betides I've known the worst. What is that worst? Nay, do not ask, in pity from the search forbear. Smile on, nor venture to unmask his heart in view the hell that's there. So he's waxing poetic about how he used to know love, and all of those romantic, traditional, awesome-sounding things. But now he is dark and brooding, and such things are past. It kind of just sounds like someone entering a depressive mode of bipolar, but hey, who am I to diagnose Byron? I'm just literally another literary critic in a huge line of people who have diagnosed Lord Byron. I mean, Lord Byron's character, that's definitely not a self-insert. Adieu, fair Cadiz, yea, a long adieu. Who may forget how well thy walls have stood, when all were changing, thou alone wert true, first to be free, and last to be subdued. And if amidst a scene, a shock so rude, some native blood was seen thy streets to die, a traitor only fell beneath the feud, here all were noble save nobility. None hugged a conqueror's chain save fallen chivalry. I just have to have a brief comment. There's a lot of soft rhymes in this, and they're really hard to read. They really sound wrong, but I'm gonna give him a pass, because coming up with this many rhymes is hard. I write poetry, and it's tough to write 150 pages of stanzas, so I'll give it to him. Such by the sons of Spain, and strange her fate, they fight for freedom who are never free, a kingless people for a nerveless state, her vassals combat when their chieftains flee. True to the veriest slaves of treachery, fond of a land which gave them naught but life. Pride points the path that leads to liberty, back to the struggle, baffled in the strife. War, war is still the cry, war even to the knife. Yea, who would more of Spain and Spaniards know? Go read whate'er is writ in bloodiest strife, whate'er keen vengeance urged on foreign foe is acting there against man's life. From flashing scimitar to secret knife, war mouldeth there each weapon to his need. So many he guard the sister and the wife, so many he maketh each cursed oppressor bleed. So many such foes deserve the most remorseless deed. Flows there a tear of pity for the dead? Look o'er the ravage of the reeking plain, look on the hands with female slaughter red. Then to the dogs resign the unburied slain. Then to the vulture let each corse remain, albeit unworthy of the prey bird's maw. Let their bleached bones and blood's unbleaching stain long mark the battlefield with hideous awe. Thus only may our sons conceive the scenes we saw. Nor yet, alas, the dreadful work is done, fresh legions pour adown the Pyrenees. It deepens still, the work is scarce begun, no mortal eye the distant end foresees. Fallen nations gaze on Spain, if freed she frees more than her full Pizarros once enchained. Strange retribution, now Columbia's ease, repairs the wrongs that Quito's sons sustained, while o'er the parent clime prowls murder unrestrained. Not all the blood at Talavera shed, not all the marvels of Barossa's fight, not Albuera lavish of the dead, have won for Spain her well asserted right. When shall her olive branch be free from blight? When shall she breathe her from the blushing toil? How many a doubtful day shall sink in night, ere the frank robber turn him from his spoil, and freedom's stranger tree grow native of the soil? And thou, my friend, since unveiling woe burst from my heart and mingles with the strain, had the sword laid thee with the mighty low, pride might forbid e'en friendship to complain. But thus unlaureled to descend in vain, by all forgotten save the loneliest breast, and mix unbleeding with the boasted slain. With glory crowned so many a meaner crest, what hadst thou done to sink so peacefully to rest? O known the earliest and esteemed the most, dear to a heart where naught was left so dear, though to my hopeless days for ever lost, in dreams deny me not to see thee here. In morn in secret shall renew the tear of consciousness awake to her woes, and fancy hover o'er thy bloodless bier, till my frail frame return to whence it rose, and mourn the mourner lie united in repose. Here is one fit of herald's pilgrimage. Ye who of him may further seek to know, shall find some tidings in a future page, if he that rhymeth now may scribble mo. Really, mo, not more, mo. Okay, I am not giving him that rhyme. Is this too much, stern critics, say not so. Patience, and ye shall hear what he beheld. In other lands where he was doomed to go, lands that contain the monuments of eld, ere Greece and Grecian arts by barbarous hands were quelled. Thus ends the first quarter of the book, the poem, of the thing. Epic does not seem appropriate for something quite so self-indulgent. All right, so far I have learned nothing about the Byronic hero other than that he monologues way too much. But I did appreciate the beautiful descriptions of Spain. I've always struggled at being more descriptive in my writing, and hopefully a little of this will osmose into my brain and make me better at the words. Until next time, I'm Ennie Johnson. Please, I almost said smash that like button. I hate that phrase. Please gently caress the like button and comment below at how uncomfortable you feel at being told to caress the like button.